Doing a chart reading for an adult is one thing, but reading for children is an entirely different ballgame. Here to chat with me about just that is Amanda MacGillivray, who is a brilliant professional astrologer. She's a graduate from the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, and she's one of our teaching assistants in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, which is now open for enrollment. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end. Thank you, Amanda, so much for being here with us today. I'm super excited for this discussion.
So it is such an honor for me to be here because I was in the very first cohort of the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, 5 years ago. And so to be talking about today, like where my studies have taken me personally is like a massive privilege and really like a full circle moment. So thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm an avid lover of astrology, and it's transformed like my personal life in more ways than I could possibly explain or count. And for myself, I'm a mother of four. And so for me, I've considered it to be one of the most healing and empowering tools that I've come across as a mother, because it's just become an indispensable part of my mothering journey. And in talking here with you today, like my goal is to illuminate like what a profound gift astrology is for navigating being a parent or a caretaker. If you're also a caretaker, it's totally relevant too, for children, as well as like the ethics of utilizing it, because it can be such a beneficial and healing tool, but it can also be something that it can cause a lot of fear, and guilt for you personally as a parent or caretaker, and can even be used too much and like overstep into the child's like autonomy. Because any of us who have gone down our own personal rabbit holes with astrology, we know like how much you can tell about an individual's life. And so it's really easy to want to go really deep, into your kid's chart and like try to fail safe their life a little bit and like protect them, from things that could happen. But that's really not our place. Like my view of this is that you can use it as like a really quiet guide kind of in the background to help support them in their uniqueness and like their personal soul mission. And it's really, it has a really harmonizing effect for the family as a whole. And yeah, just together as the whole family unit. I feel like we're in a really special time right now in history where we're really rediscovering astrology in like a really big way. And, it's being expanded upon really bigly right now, I feel like, in the collective. And we're so excited to see the extent to where we can take it. And yeah, I just don't see it spoken enough, I think, with children and in the context of being a parent, or a caretaker. So this is what I'm personally really excited about with astrology, because all of us are excited for it personally, but this is a really special avenue that you can use it with.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you. So for those of you who don't know, Amanda is a professional astrologer. She has her own astrology business called Birth of You. We'll link everything down below. And she does do children's readings for parents. And one of the things that I've seen in my practice with working with clients is that when I do readings for parents for their children, they often come in really scared because they watch something on YouTube, even sometimes in my videos, which are geared toward adult astrology readings, and they immediately link that to what they see in their child's chart and run with it. And then they run with it like wild, even more so than people tend to do with their own charts. And so part of the practice for me is always kind of taking them down from that cliffside and saying like, okay, that is content that is meant for an adult, right? And children's charts are different. Like they have so much potential in them, and that potential has yet to be shown and unlocked. And so there's way more wiggle room to work with these types of things, but also like you don't need to jump to the worst possible
Yes,
conclusion
absolutely.
and scenario. Is that something that you're seeing with your clients?
I can completely like own up to that, even with myself. When I, was learning it, for me, obviously I have children. I was like, wonderful, I can use all this stuff towards them. And then you see stuff in their chart sometimes and you're like, like that's what's going on with their moon or whatever,
Yeah.
because it has to do with you as a mother. And absolutely. So that's even been a big process for me in stepping away from that and seeing how it's a much more co-creative tool. Like you're going to see probably some crunchy things in a chart, like the ones that I read, there's always something. No, but that's the whole entire point, is that again, it's a co-creative tool. You can use it
Yeah.
in a way to lessen what could be a lot harsher. And so, yeah, like I want to be clear that this is not a way to bulletproof, your child's life. There's a quote from Gabor Mate that I really love that I feel like really speaks to this topic. So he's like a world renowned physician who has focus on child development. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but I saw a clip once where he was speaking with an audience and this woman was like, I'm terrified of having children because I feel like I'm going to traumatize them, and he was just like so calmly responded like, don't worry, you will. Like, don't let it stop you, basically. Like, this is not about becoming like the perfect parent. Like, I really take that same attitude here because you're going to see things that you probably wouldn't necessarily want to in the chart. But again, all of it can be worked with. And that's really what I want to show in this conversation today. So I'm going to pick points that I view as being really sensitive points to look at for a child. There's a lot more that you could look at, but I feel like these are like pillars to consider. So I don't want anyone to feel caught up in any kind of negative feeling like guilt, shame, or fear. Like it's all about being able to build better patterns, and really learn a lot of like self-compassion, I think, for yourself. The way that I view it is astrology is a tool that's meant to be used as like a quiet guide, like operating in the background. It's not a system for micromanaging your child's fate. And it can help you to remove a lot of the control and like hypervigilance that a lot of parents experience, and learn how to best relate to your child and see them for who they actually are, like not who society wants them to be, not even who you want them to be, just exactly who they are, and learn to accept, work to harmonize and remove some of the struggle that could be made worse. That's what I love astrology for. It just really helps like put things in perspective for you. So yeah, like children are such an initiating force in a parent's life, and there's immense beauty and heartache that comes with the territory of being a parent. And so astrology shows you the beauty and the heartache and how to work with it all. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we can, if you have anything more to say, I guess we can get into it. Oh, I guess I want to say too, like this is something that sure maybe later in life you can like talk about your child with, but you're not going to like tell your child like things that are going on in their chart, like you've got Saturn in the 11th house, like that's why you struggle with friends, you're not going to do it like that. It's
Yeah.
translation. It's just like what you teach, for us as astrologers, like when you're doing readings, you're translating information to the client. And so for you as a parent, that's what you do. You keep in mind like where their strengths are and you like help enhance that for them. And then wherever their challenges are, you're like, again, like quietly guiding them through translation with like what you do and what you say to them. So you're not like talking about their chart with them, I guess,
That
unless
makes
they happen to be
sense.
interested later in life.
Yeah. And I know we have like a whole sequence of significations that we're going to go through, but as somebody who's worked with a lot of mothers and somebody who myself is child free, I'm actually interested in your perspective on the moon in the child's chart, because the biggest thing that people come to me freaking out about when they see their child's chart is the moon is in Scorpio, or the moon is debilitated, the moon is doing something crazy. Does that mean my child will hate me? Does that mean I'm a bad, terrible mother? Does that mean this? Does that mean that? And I think that for a lot of mothers is the scariest part, like seeing that and thinking I might do something to hurt my child.
Right.
What is your perspective on that? And how would you frame that? Like if there is difficulty with the moon, because it's not like you would say to an adult, like, I see that you have complications with your relationship with your mother. That hasn't happened yet, and it might not happen, right? So what is your take on that?
Right. So, I mean, I can even relate to that. Like, I've got challenging stuff, with like my personal moon, and that shows up in my motherhood. And so I've had to go through that a lot. And that's the whole point. Again, learning astrology, you always learn like the higher octave of how to work with the energy. And I think too, like a Scorpio moon is like the perfect example of what a lot of people will be afraid about. That means, a lot of intensity. Maybe you're a mother who brings, who actually goes quite deep with them, and you're willing to talk about things that are not talked about. Like, sure, you're a little bit more intense and you go there with them, but that's not like inherently bad, of course. And so, yeah, I would say too, for mothers, that's the most significant point that they do become afraid of. But again, this is where you can kind of get ahead of where there could be struggle, and you can recognize things in yourself, like if it's a lesser expression of any moon sign, you can really see like patterns within yourself and try to get ahead of that and try to correct that, maybe even in like when you're like repairing with your child, if you have like a challenging moment. But the moon is like highly significant. Obviously there's the big three, which is really important to look at with anyone, sun, moon, and ascendant. That really kind of makes up like our core identity and foundation. But I do give special emphasis with the moon. And this is like the first piece, in this talk that I want to talk about with kids, because it's really, really apparent in them because it's so automatic. Like our moon, it represents our emotions, subconscious patterning, our instincts. It's something that you can't even like really stop. It's just really ingrained in who we are, our intuition, our subjective view of reality. And like we were saying, it literally represents like the mother. It's the original source of nurturing, home after conception. And so with children, that is their source of nurturing. And so a child who has a Scorpio moon, they actually do need that intensity. They need to really like be seen and held in their really like profound emotions that some people would shy away from, that they, wouldn't, that might be a little bit, scary for some people or something. The moon, and too for parents, is so important. Like for me, when I do charts, for adults or for children, it's like, if an adult is really off kilter in life, I'm kind of like, what's going on with your moon? Because the moon is really our emotional foundation. And so this is where you can see with a child, this is something that you really want to nurture really early on in life. It's really where I feel like the rest of our life can really flourish from. If we're really suffering in our moon, like, yeah, we're just not, we don't feel safe to do what we need to do like in our life. And nurturing your moon, on the other hand, gives you that deep sense of wholeness to where you can do things, So for kids, again, you can see how this would be extra important. It's not about perfection, but about just looking at what's going on with their moon and really giving what they need to be nurtured. And what I love about astrology is I think it shows like how nurturing is not necessarily how we think it would look, for a Scorpio moon, like you brought up, like what they need intensity to feel nurtured, or they need to be like psychologically held. Like, yeah, like for them, that is, it just shows like the full spectrum of what we actually need on a deeper level to feel, safe and secure. So just as an example, like my youngest son, he's an Aries moon, and it's hilarious to me. Like Aries is the ram, very like self-led, initiating. He literally climbed before he could ever walk, like super, super high, was doing all these like crazy things before he could walk. And he's really independent and self-led. Like he needs to do, and he does do, like risk taking, jumping off super high things. And I kind of have to like grit my teeth a little bit and like let him initiate. And you would do that for any kid anyway, but it's extra with him. You can see that like for him, like his emotional need actually has to do with that, like being able to initiate things in his life and do, take some risks. So that's where I'm kind of like nurturing him in that way. But I guess to give like a full example of maybe like, the moon in a house in a particular sign, like take a Gemini moon. A Gemini moon child is going to need to experience the world around them and learn. They're going to be super curious about everything, and they're going to want to be very social. And maybe for you as the parent, like you're a homebody and you don't really like to go out. You're not very social. And so this is like where you can see, where looking at your child's chart, where you might need to like expand from something that's not really natural to you, and being conscious of something that they need that you might naturally kind of, not do for them. Basically, you might like not want to go out as much, or not be as social, or like go to museums or whatever, things that really like nurture their curiosity. And so you can be like, oh, okay, actually they really need this. Like I need to do this for them. So this doesn't mean that you're like betraying yourself and not doing something that you're not comfortable with, but you're like, you're being a little bit flexible for them, and you're being like, okay, they need this. I will get my own downtime like elsewhere, but they're very curious. They need to expand, and I'm going to do that for them. Because I think nurturing can feel, when we think about nurturing, I feel like it's almost like I give them words of affirmation, like I hug them, like I'm nurturing them. And that's part of it. But this is where astrology can show you like, oh, what they actually need is something different. It's something more specific.
So essentially what it sounds like is you're framing it more like the moon shows this is how to best nurture your child versus the moon showing this is what their relationship with their mother is going to look like.
It partially is. Like, it definitely does show that, That's the funny thing about astrology, is that there is kind of multi-dimensional meanings for everything. But again, like, what you can do with this knowledge is just focus on what they do need, like, to be nurtured. It might show some challenging experiences that you will have that, of course, as you get deeper into astrology, might be, activated by like transit or something like that. There might be something there that's challenging, but you can, again, it's about like, forewarned, forearmed. You already are understanding like how to nurture them. So when you do come across, times of challenge, like, you're already supporting them on a deeper level, and you know how to like come back from challenge, basically.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so moving on, which is kind of, it's similar to the moon in some ways, would be another piece that I look at is the fourth house and the
Mhm.
IC. So this is another big piece of nurturing. It gives really crucial information related to what you were just saying. Like, it gives a lot of information for parents of understanding how the child perceives their home environment and what's actually going on, like what's actually happening in the home. But again, thinking about how to work with the energy, this is how you can help them have a better sense of home and create like a sanctuary for them, basically, that they can recharge in. And so again, there's similar significations. And this is what I love about whole sign houses, which is, what you teach in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology. There's the fourth house, but then there's the IC. That's like the very bottom of the chart. With whole sign houses, it can go into a different house aside from the fourth house. So this is where you can get extra nuance on what they might need for, feeling at home, like in your physical home, and also just more information about the family dynamics that are going on. So yeah, the fourth house represents home, family, property, ancestry. The IC also represents home, your lineage, bloodline, ancestral patterns, all that stuff, and what you need to feel at home. So it does reflect your childhood environment. And that's what's been fascinating for me as a mother of 4, is I've really seen that in action. Like, my kids' fourth house IC and like part of their charts completely reflects what was going on like in our family at that time. So it's like really wild. I'm just like, what? Clearly they were meant to be born when they were to make all this land in the fourth house. It's really crazy to see. So yeah, again, it's really important to see, again, how they are perceiving your home life.
Yeah. The fourth house in the IC also represents the parents very
Yeah,
literally. And I've seen that
totally.
strongest with the IC and the IC ruler. What would you have to say about that in a child's chart?
Right. So again, like we were saying with the moon, this is totally another spot that can get really sensitive, and you might see some challenging stuff. Like, yeah, say there is the Scorpio moon, say the fourth house has Mars in it, say Saturn, is like on the IC, and you're like, you would look at that and be like, oh my gosh, like this is intense. That's a lot of heavy energy. But like, for one thing, it doesn't necessarily mean like something bad. Of course, like, I feel like this is even an example where what this could show is like perhaps these parents were like really intense, like literally maybe they were super active like bodybuilders or something like that, like Mars in the fourth house, very martial, active, Saturn on the IC, perhaps say that's in the fifth house, it's not in the fourth, maybe it's one over, maybe they're super just, again, disciplined with the way that they, again, say they're super active and they just don't have as much fun because they're super disciplined. The fifth house is all about that. That's fun, joy, pleasure. So your experience like of your parents would have been that they were like not as fun, maybe more disciplined and all of that.
Like a
you
more
know? And
structured
so,
environment that they grew
yeah,
up in.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it can also be the other way where like you would look at that the other way, seeing Mars, on the fourth and Saturn on the IC could also be there was a lot of fighting in the home. Maybe there was a lot of like psychological intensity and like you didn't have a lot of fun, like in the home. But like this is where if that's like your reality and you're seeing that your family dynamics are a little bit challenging like that, you can look at that like in the face and be like, okay, what can I do to change this? You check your relationship with your partner. You're like, you know what? We're not going to fight anymore. We're going to do this in private. Maybe we've been fighting in front of the kids way too much. We're going to take this away. With Saturn on, the IC in the fifth, like, you know what? Instead of not being fun, we're literally going to schedule fun like into our life. We're going to like go out every weekend. We're going to have more fun. We're going to make it more part of our life in a structured, like Saturnian way. So there would be that, kind of before and after where that was the reality. But looking at this information, this is how you can shift it. So yeah, I love looking at that because it's not, a sentence. It's not, you're not necessarily doomed. It just might speak to a harsh reality or really beautiful. Of course, there could be some really incredible energy in there, like a bunch of Venus and Jupiter and like, I don't know, whatever. And like, you can just enhance that, and just keep going with whatever's going on in there in a positive way.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
essentially, if you have something that looks challenging, you work on manifesting the more productive end of that
Yeah.
spectrum as
Totally.
opposed to, the stuff that is a little bit harsh. And maybe
Yeah.
if you see that there's a lot of Saturn, you loosen the reins a little bit, I've
Yeah.
seen so many Saturn IC children and Saturn fourth house children who grew up in like really rigid environments that completely rebel. So one of the things that could be said about that is, hey, if you don't loosen up a little bit, have a little bit more fun, give them a little bit more freedom,
Yeah.
I can see all this rebelliousness out here.
Yeah.
The opposite of what you want to happen
I love
might
that.
be the
That's
reaction to this. So
totally.
there's so many different ways to look at this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like going back to the example of Saturn, it's not just like, oh, you're too rigid. It's also they do need structure. Like
Yeah,
they do need that in
totally.
their home environment. But it's
Absolutely.
just to what extent, is it too much? Like where is the line there? That's kind of what you need to look at there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then like all kinds of little things that you can do again in the name of being like quietly supporting them. There's all kinds of things that you can like literally like create their room into a sanctuary that will help them like feel at home.
I
Also
love
like with
that.
Mars, maybe yeah, you have a home gym or you do like exercise with them. You move with them. Maybe you paint their room like a really bright color, and that supports their Mars need that they might not even know. Like that's what's funny for me is like looking into all this stuff. Like I'm like, I didn't know that would feel so good to me, but it does. Like when you include the fourth house and icy associations like into your physical home and your life,
Yes.
it does feel really good. And you're like, so yeah, with Mars, yeah, maybe there's a home gym, whatever. Maybe it's a bright color. You have imagery that's Mars like. With the Saturn IC part, maybe their room is really minimalist and you keep, their toys or their stuff like separate out of their room and it's more like just a bed,
Or just
a couple other
organized.
things. Yeah, or just organized, which I
Or
would
it's just
hope
you
that
paint
they
their room jet black. It's just a
yeah,
black cube, Saturn cube.
yeah, exactly. My son really wants that. I'm telling him no, but yeah. But yeah, so that's like a really great way, again, where you're just like kind of passively really helping them feel, give them a sanctuary that you might not, we wouldn't normally think that they would need. So, and those things feel like a little bit silly, but they actually do. Once you go into the chart and you actually put these things in your life, they do feel really, really good.
Well, and those are remedies too.
Exactly.
Back in the day, it's kind of like the thought process was you use up the energy in this way so it doesn't manifest in a negative way.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I look at it. Like all of this stuff that I'm talking about, I feel like it's essentially new remedies. It's looking at how you can harmonize your life with your child, whether it's through behavior or if yeah, through like physical things. So yeah, that's about the fourth house IC. And then next I'll move on to Mercury, which is huge. Like Mercury is a really big piece of everyone's life overall, because it represents communication. It's how we speak, it's how we process information. This is so big for families. Like, communication is one of the biggest pieces. Like, some people just might naturally have an energy that doesn't work together, but then people like totally get each other and you feel like you're just on the same page. And like Mercury can really, really speak to that. And so it's a big harmonizing piece of astrology. So, depending on the Mercury you have, what aspects being made and such, again, they could be very different styles. Like take, a Mercury retrograde in Cancer, which is a water sign. They process deeply through emotions. They're very intuitive, and the retrograde part of it would make it to where they're even more internalized and they actually need more time to say what they want to say and just process their thoughts. And then say you as the parent, like you have Mercury in Aquarius, it's direct and it's like square Mars, and so you're like a genius and you have like immediate access to like your thoughts. You're very quick thinking. Like the square to Mars is going to make it fast, but can also be, potentially blunt or a little bit abrasive, which is like really
You're describing my Mercury and I'm just like over here like, okay, you're calling me out.
I'm not trying to. I just picked examples. But it can be. But like, so you can see how with a person who's got the Mercury Cancer energy, where it's like, okay, I need to let them have more time to think, for one thing. Like, I can't expect them to have as quick access to what they want to say as me. And like, maybe I'll soften a little bit, or I have the opportunity to, it's like, what their needs are, so that again, in times of like repair, you can be like really level with them, because we also can't stop like who we are and what our natural energy is. Like, your Mercury Aquarius square Mars is not gonna go anywhere. So that's who you are, but you just have to know like how you're interacting with other people. Your child is one of the most important people in your life. And so you can just step back and like, if you need to repair, you'll know how to do that like for them. And then you can consciously temper like maybe your desire for them to like already know something or to have an answer to something. So yeah, there can definitely be a lot of tension that comes up like with Mercury styles. And another big piece of this, like for everyone, but particularly with kids, which is such a huge aspect of raising children, is like education and learning.
Yeah.
And so this is really huge. And while it's not like a diagnostic tool, astrology is not a diagnostic tool. And this gets even into like medical astrology a little bit. This is where you can see things like, which are so big nowadays, like learning disabilities or like neurodivergency, or, kids who think really, really differently or not how you would expect them to. Or, of course, it could show just like studiousness. Yeah. So Mercury is such a massive tool that can really help you as a parent understand what your child needs for learning purposes and education. Understanding their Mercury sign can help you make a more informed decision around what kind of education or schooling that you're going to do with them and what they might be best suited to. Perhaps some children do really well like in a public school, or maybe they technically might do a little bit better with homeschooling. But two, I guess I don't want anyone to like overthink this, because whatever significations they have, depending on what is like realistic for your life at this time, like you can work with their energy in whatever like kind of situation that you need to put them in. So, like I joke sometimes with like Mercury and Capricorn, it's like super Saturnian, and it's like, oh, well, Mercury and Capricorn, like they should just go to boarding school. Like it's not like that. It's not quite so literal. There's always, what that sign would need. They would need structure. They might be a little bit more studious. Like, so even if you are a homeschooling family, they just need more structure than other signs might. So yeah, it just helps you to work with what you're going to provide for them. Like as another example, take like a Mercury in Pisces, on the fourth house conjunct Neptune, which is a very fantastical energy, and so this child is probably going to be very creative, going to have a deep need probably for privacy. and recharging at home, and they might struggle with their attention span because they're going to be like floating off, into the ethers a little bit. So it's not that they're not intelligent, it's just like that's how their mind works. And so they might struggle, with like the busyness of like the bustling environments of like a big school or environments like that. And so technically, if you're able to, maybe you can put them in something that has a smaller student count. Maybe you are able to homeschool them. Maybe you're able to get them in a more creative type school or something like that, like a Waldorf-ish type school. But that also might not be a reality for you. And so a way to work with that would be just to make sure that they do have that private time. Like they come home, you're able to give them that sanctuary of recharging, like in their bedroom, or maybe you have like a home garden that's like theirs for tending, where they can like just, kind of tune out like the outer world. Maybe activities on the weekend, you're involving more like creative stuff, so there's always a remedy with any of the energy that your child or that you have. So that's where I would look for Mercury, like just what the whole communication dynamics like of the family are. And then like just being able to tailor a little bit like what their learning and education experience is going to be, and can explain like just why, maybe they think very differently, like again, like the placement that I just told you about, like they might struggle with attention. So you would know that that's like part of the explanation, like as to why, and again, how you can work with that. And that's kind of wrapping up Mercury. The last piece that I'd love to talk about is something that I do think is really important, but I could see being a little bit of a, maybe not controversial, but like a piece where some parents could get a little bit hypervigilant about. I like looking at the North and South Node, because this has to do with their personal like soul mission in this lifetime, and their South Node energy. Because the North Node, this is what our soul is trying to, it's never done before. It's going in an uncomfortable path in life. The South Node, on the other hand, is mastery. It's like a culmination, of our past lives, if that's something that you subscribe to. And so it's a point of mastery, but also like a comfort zone. Like we want to stay in our South nodes, and we're meant to go towards our North node. So this is a really beautiful opportunity, I think, to like, again, gently encourage children towards what they are ultimately meant to be learning in their lifetime. When looking at this in a child's chart, the South Node is like super present. This is my experience. This is what I see in readings. Like it's a really big part. We kind of forget that actually. It's a really big, because we're focused on our big three and like our placements in this lifetime, but our South Node is very much present in who we are in this lifetime, and, very prominent in young children. It's definitely an area where I recommend to proceed with caution, because this has to do with destiny. It could easily feel like something you're really trying to like help them. You're trying to help them like move into their North Node and like their purpose. And that's not really, our job. It's also not really how they function. The nodes are like something you are propelled towards. It's kind of like you almost don't have that control. It's uncomfortable because it's something that, our soul hasn't done, but we will be pulled towards our North Node. But like, just to give an example, so say a child has, a Libra South Node. They're naturally going to be very peaceful, very harmonizing, probably get along, with everyone, possibly artistic, and very Venusian and enjoyable to be around, but they might really struggle with their own self-agency and doing things independently, perhaps like getting stuck in, toxic like friendships like earlier in life or something, like, I don't know, like friends with a bully or something like that. They're learning how to be self-asserting. They're learning how to be, more courageous, take their own interests in mind, because they're naturally going to put like other people's interests like ahead of theirs. And that's their comfort zone. So a way that you can help them is like, you can tailor like the life wisdom that you're imparting to them with this in mind. So again, this is not a thing where you literally tell them like, hey, your purpose in life is to do like Aries stuff, and you're not going to do that. You're going to translate and impart wisdom that is like Aries style. You're going to tell them, you're going to lift them up. You're going to be like, you can do this. And you're going to encourage them to do things and take risks that they might be afraid to. So that's like a way that I look at it. And another cool thing that I like to do is like, you're tailoring what you say, but you're tailoring activities that you have them do. And you're also tailoring things, even like stories and like media. You can show them movies that have a particular theme that is like really relevant, towards this like life mission that they're on. Bedtime stories, you can like find ones again that have those like themes involved and are very like inspiring in that way. Maybe they might not want to, but maybe you encourage them to do sports or something a little bit more competitive. So again, you're not forcing them. You're not making them do these things, but you're gently, silently in your own mind, like guiding them and the things you expose them to, like in this way, and really like micro movements and micro ways. You're not like totally taking a hand in everything, but that's a really beautiful thing that I think astrology can really show you and just supports them. Again, it's always with the nodes, you're always going to be talking with the North Node. It's going to be a point of challenge. Like I was saying, it's not always going to be hard. You can't remove that from their experience, but you can just like, again, just put those experiences like in their life. So it becomes a little bit more comfortable or a little bit more something they experience. Yeah, those are the pieces that I think are really significant, like kind of pillars that I look at in a chart. There's definitely a lot more to it. And, in anyone's chart, like they can have things that like massively stick out to you that are really important to that individual. Like maybe they've got like a freaking 6-planet stellium or something like that. Like anyone born right now, this big Aries stellium we've got, but like overall, those are big pieces that I look at that are really great guiding factors. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
my kind of closing statement. And I hope that, parents who are out there learning astrology, for themselves can just start to think of how they can apply it to harmonizing relationships with their children. Of course, all people in their life as well, but just applying what they're learning to their family. Because again, I just don't think it's spoken about enough. There's immense healing implications with astrology, and that's one of my favorite areas to look at it for.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was a really great starting point for any parent that's learning astrology who wants to dive into their child's chart and utilize that information that they're seeing in a way that's just super helpful. And so, speaking of learning astrology, I do want to mention to all of you that the Cosmic Academy of Astrology is now open for enrollment. Not only are you going to be getting a massive discount because it is our 5-year anniversary of the Academy, we started with Amanda's cohort back in 2021. And I just can't believe we've made it 5 whole years. But we're also doing a live cohort for level 1. So you'll be enrolling in the entire academy, but level 1 will be a 4-month live experience where you're going to be learning with a group of like-minded astrology lovers who are just exactly where you're at in the course. You're going to get additional study group sessions where you're going to practice and get feedback and additional demonstration in real time from Amanda and our other teaching assistant, Jen, who are both absolutely brilliant. You're going to be getting bonus Q&A calls every single month with me, which I don't normally do. So this is extra special. And this is on top of the support we already provide to our self-paced students, where you're getting twice monthly all levels Q&A calls. You're getting monthly study group sessions, and all of that will continue for 2 whole years while you go through levels 2 through 6, which are the more advanced levels in the academy. This is perfect for you if you've been studying the bits and pieces and watching things on YouTube and maybe freaking out because you're seeing it in your chart or your kid's chart, and you want to understand how this really works in practice. And not everybody wants to or needs to become a professional astrologer. Like Amanda just demonstrated today, this information can be used for you and to understand yourself, to understand your family dynamics, to help support your children in the best possible way, to support your partner, to support everyone in your life. And it can be something that you just love to do, and that it's a skill that can be used for literally anything. Like astrology is how everything's connected to everything else. Yeah. And I'm curious, Amanda, when you started learning astrology, were you learning to do it professionally, or was it just because you were curious?
No, definitely. It was totally personal. I was just like, there was just a moment in my life where it like all clicked and how much sense that it made. And then I was learning it for myself personally. And then I was just like, get the far reaching applications, like I said, for healing and for just how much more meaningful I think it makes everyone's life. I was like, I love this. I just completely fell in love and like decided, I was like, yeah, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to do. I gotta help. I gotta help the parents and mothers out there. It's just such, yeah, I can't tell anyone what to do, but like the Cosmic Academy of Astrology is just so much fun. It's such a beautiful, supportive, like live learning experience. You're not doing it on your own. There is so much to astrology. You can totally learn as solo as you want, but like the support is really what sets this program apart and was such a huge, and I'm so glad I happened to like discover you at this sensitive time and not go too far into all like the bits and bob pieces that I was going into at that time. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience and highly recommend.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you went through the academy and that you're helping us teach our students now. That's super fun. And
It
if
is.
anybody wants a reading with you for their children or just in general, where can they find you?
So my website is thebirthofyou.com, and I have two official offerings right now, which is a general natal chart reading. And then I do have one called a mother child reading, which is specifically about like these themes that we were talking about between the mother and the child. Like I go into your personal relationship dynamics, even your karma together, if that is really, present, and giving you a lot of tools on how to just support their nurturing, their nervous system, learning style, all kinds of things. You'll see what I offer on my page. But yeah, I would be honored to do that and hopefully offer some harmony to your family.
Yeah, and I will link all of that down below because I know some people are going to be definitely interested in that. What you offer is unique and you have a unique perspective because you do have 4 children. And so you've been there, done that. You're a professional astrologer. You're always probably looking at their charts constantly. So the best way to learn astrology is through experience and is through the wisdom that's gained through experience.
Yeah,
And
I've
I'm
been
sure you
through
have
quite the boot
a
camp.
lot of wisdom. Yeah.
Totally. All right. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here, and I hope to be meeting some of you in our student community.
Yeah. We'll see you guys in class. And thank you again, Amanda. And I'll talk to you again soon.